Here's why DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, and Anthony Davis might actually not leave their current teams. So for the people that don't know, the NBA has agreed on a new deal. The NBA and the Players Union jointly announced that they have come to terms on a new 7-year-long collective bargaining agreement, also known as the CBA, which means that there will be no lockout in 2017. Now, there's actually a few reasons why I'm making the video. Obviously, the CBA has a lot to do with the actual NBA and the landscape of the NBA, so I wanted to explain that for those that don't know. But the main reason I wanted to make this video is because this deal will have a huge impact on players like DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, Anthony Davis, but mostly DeMarcus Cousins and Paul George and players like Gordon Hayward, players entering free agency in 2018. One of the new provisions of the new CBA is the creation of a designated veteran extension, which will allow teams to re-sign certain players that meet criteria such as all NBA teams to 5-year extensions, starting the year before their contract is up. So technically it's more like a 6-year extension. It just so happens that one of the most highly talked about players plays for the Sacramento Kings, and they have that player in DeMarcus Cousins. And the new CBA rule will allow the Kings to offer DeMarcus Cousins more guaranteed money and a longer contract without the risk of him testing free agency. This rule will have a huge effect on what Boogie decides to do with his future, and as you know if you're subscribed to my channel, I like to share stories as well as talk current NBA topics that people don't really talk about, and I haven't really heard many people talk about the new CBA, so if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe and enjoy the video. Here's why the new CBA could end future super teams, and what effect will it have on players like DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, Anthony Davis, and players alike. Now, I can try my hardest to explain the entire scenario, but I was watching The Jump with Rachel Nichols and Tracy McGrady, and they explained the whole scenario pretty well, much better than I could. So I'll let you guys hear what Rachel had to say, and then I want to discuss my thoughts on the whole scenario, because I feel like when Rachel explains it, it's so much better than I am, and that's her job to do things like that. So I just want to give my thoughts, but I want to also show you what Tracy McGrady had to say, because he brought up some pretty amazing points from an NBA's player's perspective.
Welcome back to The Jump. We're going to talk a little collective bargaining agreement, since the deal reached this week will influence the NBA for the next 6 years. Now, the biggest wrinkle is the clear attempt to prevent future super teams. Brian's been calling it the Kevin Durant rule. Basically, teams will now be able to offer their homegrown superstars extensions that are longer, they're for a lot more money than the contracts that those same players could get if they do become free agents on the open market. So take DeMarcus Cousins, for instance. Assuming he meets the new criteria, he could sign a 6-year extension with the Kings this summer for about $235 million. Or if he decides to wait a year and go to a different team, the most he could get is about 4 years, $138 million, which is, still a lot of money, but for those of you counting along at home, $100 million less. Now, even for a guy like Boogie, who has felt marooned in Sacramento over the years, that would be a lot to turn down.
Now, if you weren't paying attention, this is pretty crazy to break it down. This will have a huge change on the NBA, and many people are calling it the Kevin Durant rule, because over the last offseason, we know what happened with Durant heading to the Warriors and creating one of the best teams in NBA history. They have 2 MVPs, 4 All-Stars, and we know that the Warriors will most likely make it to the NBA Finals for the 3rd straight year, and probably for many more years to come. The Kevin Durant move from Oklahoma City Thunder and leaving Russell Westbrook to join the Warriors that went 73-9, we all know that. It was one of the craziest things that we've seen in recent NBA history. Now, as a way to prevent people like Kevin Durant leaving the Thunder and leaving Russell Westbrook to join the Warriors, the 73-9 Golden State Warriors, this new CBA rule is going to help teams that have drafted and developed a player for a number of years to actually just help them decide and sort of make it a little bit easier for the current team to keep their players, because the NBA is sort of just trying to eliminate the amount of super teams in the NBA, which is fair enough. We don't want the whole NBA to be super teams. So the new CBA rule pretty much has the plan to help teams that have drafted and developed a player for a number of years to actually entice them into staying with more money. Because the NBA doesn't want to see heaps of Kevin Durants happen. They don't want to see heaps of players that were like Kevin Durant who could have actually made the finals. Instead, they just joined the teams that they couldn't beat. When in reality, Kevin Durant probably could have beaten the Warriors, but that's for another video. The CBA rule will help the original team pay the current player more money than any other team could in the NBA. But not just a little bit more money. a ton more money. And if you didn't hear what Rachel Nichols said, I'll repeat it right now. She pretty much said, a player who was a part of the original team, like Kevin Durant was with the Thunder, and agrees to sign on a 6-year extension, will most likely get paid around $235 million. Or he can wait a year and go to a different team, but the most he can get paid is 4 years, $138 million. Which is a big difference if you can't realize. But keep in mind, to be eligible to actually get these huge contracts, like a 6-year extension worth $235 million, you actually have to be a really good player. And not just a really good player, because, like I said, only certain players actually will meet the criteria, because you need to be as good as an All-NBA player, or you have to be featured on an All-NBA team to be eligible for this type of contract. So if you didn't really understand that, I hope it sort of made a little bit of sense, but my bad if it didn't. It might be a little bit hard to understand, but pretty much a lot of money if you stay on your current team, or less money to go to a super team. That's the really easy way to break it down, but that's not really what it is at all. Alright, so now I want you to listen to one of the greatest players when he was in his prime, in Tracy McGrady, because he brought up some pretty amazing points, and some points that I guess you would think about, but since he's actually played in the NBA, he would understand it a bit more than anybody else. Like me, like any other YouTuber, like any other current media reporter. He played in the NBA, he knows all about it. And I want to discuss what he said, as well as talk about the current NBA super teams, because players like DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony Davis, this rule will affect them a lot. So yeah, let's just listen to what T-Mac had to say.
I do want to get to the super team issue though, because they put in this thing to basically say, we're going to prevent you or try to, disincentivize you from going off and joining your buddies. So Tracy, if you were Paul George or Anthony Davis or Russell Westbrook, who's going to be facing this in a year or two.
What are you asking? What are you asking me?
Would you,
million. That's what she's asking.
Freedom or more money for more years?
Really? These guys will be a fool to, I guess, test their freedom and look for other teams. If I could get $230 million for what?
Okay, but compared to $130 million. I mean, it's not like you're getting nothing on the other side.
No, Rachel. No, you'll be a damn fool. I mean, if you want a championship that bad, look, I had some guys, when I played in Orlando, used to reach out to me because they needed money because it was broke because they didn't take care of their funds. Go buy one of them championship rings. I mean, come on, man. Look, I'm not leaving $100 million on the table. I'm sorry. DeMarcus Cousins, you're stuck. Paul George is stuck. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's not just, gee, they're not going to get a championship, probably. But we talk all the time. Poor Anthony Davis, he's stuck night after night.
Man, look, we play this game to take care of our family. Yes, right. We all enjoy the competition and want to win the ultimate goal. But at the end of the day, no.
So when you put it the way that Tracy McGrady put it, leaving $100 million on the table, that's a lot of money. That is a whole lot of money. And for some people, that's probably a little bit too much money to pass up on. On the opposite spectrum, if you're a player like DeMarcus Cousins and has clearly stated that sometimes he doesn't enjoy playing in Sacramento simply because of the management, he stated on multiple times that the management isn't helping him win games and they aren't putting the right team around him to actually succeed. So I want to ask you right now, of course we'll break it down throughout the video, but before I do that, I want to ask you, and be honest with this, if you were in the NBA or you were in DeMarcus Cousins' shoes, what would you do? Would you take the money, which is $100 million more, which is a ton of money, and remember, you don't play in the NBA your whole life. You'll only play for maybe a quarter of your life if you're lucky. Or would you take the other option, which is to leave Sacramento or leave your own team that you were originally playing for, which isn't helping you win, and maybe you could join a super team, or not even a super team, but maybe you could just join the team that you like. Now, obviously you have to think about the whole scenario as an NBA player's perspective, because obviously I don't know what it's like to be an NBA player. I don't really ever think I will be in the NBA at all. So you have to sort of think about it the way that Tracy McGrady tells you to think about it, because he's been in the NBA. he knows what it's like to be in the NBA. And obviously, you're going to have disagreements with certain players who have been in the NBA. But in my opinion, I can't say what it's like to be in the NBA. But what I can do is listen to someone that was in the NBA, and that was Tracy McGrady. So I listened to what he said, and what I sort of got out of it was, I'd say that with this rule, with the new CBA rule, you can definitely see the rule hurting future super teams, because for a player like Paul George, who knows that the Pacers will almost always give him an opportunity to make the playoffs and compete, I'd say that he'd probably now take this huge amount of money, whereas a player like DeMarcus Cousins, who has never, ever made the playoffs and can't trust his management, will probably have one of the hardest decisions of his life. And that's obviously to stick with the Sacramento Kings, or to either get traded, or to leave via free agency. It's going to be a really tough time for DeMarcus Cousins, whereas, like I said, Paul George, he sort of knows that the management will always give him an opportunity to win, because they've got Larry Bird, he's a pretty good GM, they've got pretty good head coaches, they've made the playoffs before, they gave the Miami Heat a run for their money back when LeBron was on the Big Three in Miami. You know, they've always sort of competed for a championship since Paul George has made it on that team. Whereas the Sacramento Kings, yeah, they've never made the playoffs since they've had DeMarcus Cousins. So, I mean, in my opinion, if I was Paul George, I'd probably take that money. I'd probably stick with the Pacers and get that $100 million extra dollars, because I know that the Pacers will give me an opportunity to win. But if I'm DeMarcus Cousins, that is where it gets tough. So I know that for most of this video we have talked about DeMarcus Cousins, but that's simply because DeMarcus Cousins for the past, 3 seasons has been one of the most talked about players every season, because the Kings don't help him win. He's always in trade talks, and he's always frustrated, so of course he's always going to be in the midst of trade rumors, and I feel like this new CBA rule is obviously going to affect him a lot. So the last thing that I want to say is that this does seem to increase the possibility of DeMarcus Cousins remaining in a Sacramento Kings uniform. However, this rule also means that DeMarcus Cousins' value on the trade market will also increase, because now Sacramento has more leverage, especially if they can get Cousins to agree on a long-term extension this summer. If they can sign him and then they can actually trade him, then that would be a lot better for teams like the Boston Celtics, because the one reason the Boston Celtics wouldn't want to get DeMarcus Cousins is because he might actually leave them after the one season with them. And if that happens, Boston would have given up a lot to get him and only received him for the 1 year. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm trying to say is, if the Boston Celtics give up a lot of future assets for a player that will only stick with them for 1 season, then they've sort of messed up there. So, if the Kings can sign him to a big extension that will make DeMarcus Cousins happy, and then they can trade him to the Celtics, but get future assets like future picks, maybe Jaylen Brown, maybe something else, then you've got a deal. The thing is, I don't know if you guys know, but DeMarcus Cousins and Isaiah Thomas, they haven't really had the best relationship, so I don't know if DeMarcus Cousins going to Boston is the best thing, but it would be pretty cool to say the least. Now obviously, this won't only affect DeMarcus Cousins. This will have a huge effect on players like John Wall, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, Paul George, James Harden, and players that might want to request a trade from their current team, or players that want to eventually form super teams. This rule might be the end of super teams, and maybe we'll never see a team like the Warriors with Durant, Curry, Draymond, and Klay Thompson ever again. But take your choice. Lots more money, $100 million, or a slight chance to win a championship. Let me know down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I just thought it'd be an interesting video for those that didn't know about the new CBA rule and how it'll affect players like DeMarcus Cousins and Paul George, because it's going to have a huge effect on super teams. Now, if you guys enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you guys could hit that subscribe button. The subscribers on this channel have been going up and down. We did really well a few weeks ago. It's sort of slowing down. So if you're new around here, you enjoy the video, you enjoy the content, and you're not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. And also, if you guys enjoyed the video and you thought it was entertaining, you found something new, please leave a like on the video just to show your support. That would mean the world to me. And also, if you guys have a good idea that you'd like me to make a video on, comment some of your own ideas down below in the comment section and I'll take a look. That would be amazing, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace!